The afternoon sun burned over the sleepy town of Alder Ridge, but the heat wasn't what made people turn their heads. What froze them in place was the sight of a small girl sprinting across the sidewalk, tears streaking lines through the dust on her cheeks. Her backpack thudded against her shoulders with every frantic step until she finally skidded to a stop beside a line of parked motorcycles. Her little hands clutched the straps so tightly, her knuckles went white. Her heartbeat roared louder than the engines that had carried the men there. She didn't know who they were. She didn't know whether they were dangerous or safe. She only knew one thing. These strangers were her final chance. Her voice broke as she cried out for help, words pouring out in choked, breathless bursts. That desperate moment would change her life and the lives of the men who heard her. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and protecting those who can't defend themselves, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories. Stories like this deserve to be heard. Her name was Mariel Hayes, a quiet 9-year-old whose world had been shrinking piece by piece. Her mother, Celine, had recently remarried a man named Victor. Simone, who seemed gentle at first but transformed the moment a wedding ring touched his hand. He wasn't outwardly cruel, not in ways the world would notice, but there was a darkness in him, a tightening control that Mariel learned to fear. He took over everything, the house, the finances, their daily routines. Slowly, silently, he stole even her mother's voice. But what terrified Mariel most was how obsessively he began monitoring her every move, how he watched, how he whispered that she belonged to him now. Then came the moment that shattered what little courage she had left. Victor announced they were leaving town. No more school, no more friends, no more visits with her grandparents, just isolation, and him. She had only minutes, a tiny window to escape, and she ran. Across the street, a group of bikers from a club called Iron Valor had stopped for a quick break on their long ride. They were big, weathered men, leather vests faded by the sun, boots heavy with miles, faces roughened by life. But not all stone is cold. Something in their presence struck Mariel deep down. They looked strong enough to help her, strong enough to stop him. The first man who noticed her was Rhodes Mercer, a tall figure with steel, blue eyes and streaks of silver woven through his beard. His expression always seemed stuck somewhere between tired and alert, as if he'd seen enough darkness in his life to recognize it instantly. But nothing hardened him more than the sight of a frightened child. Mariel's story tumbled out of her in panicked fragments. Her stepfather, his threats, his plan to take her away forever. Rhodes didn't cut her off or ask unnecessary questions. He simply crouched down, leveling his gaze with hers, letting the other bikers quietly form a semicircle around them. When someone is in real danger, their fear doesn't need explaining. It's unmistakable. Rhodes felt it in every trembling word she spoke. The Iron Valor crew wasn't made of perfect men. They had their flaws, their shadows, their regrets, but protecting the innocent was something they never hesitated about. Rhodes rose slowly to his full height, glanced at his brothers, and gave a single nod. No words needed. Instantly, they shifted, creating a protective ring around Mariel, not trapping her, but shielding her. Passersby paused, sensing tension in the air. Cars rolled by slower. Even the wind seemed to still. Waiting, Rhodes knelt beside Mariel again, gently urging her to breathe and tell him what she was running from. Bit by bit, her shaking voice revealed a story of control, fear, and a stepfather whose possessiveness had grown into something dangerous. Mariel didn't explain every detail. Children rarely do. But she revealed enough to make Rhodes' jaw tighten and his fists curl at his sides. She told him how Victor announced that morning he was taking her far away, how he squeezed her arm painfully when she resisted, and how she escaped only because his phone rang and he stepped into another room. Her mother, trapped in silent fear, had begged her with trembling eyes to run, so she did. Just as Rhodes finished asking how soon Victor might come looking for her, a black SUV whipped around the corner, screeching to a stop across the lot. The door flew open. Victor stepped out with a face as red as the sun, jaw clenched, movements sharp and predatory. His eyes scanned the street until they landed on Mariel, and his hand balled into a fist. He took one step forward. He never got to take a second. Rhodes and the Iron Valor bikers moved in one fluid motion, forming a wall between Mariel and the man advancing toward her. Their leather vests and broad shoulders blocked her completely from view, turning them into a fortress of steel and resolve. People nearby froze. One murmured that the bikers looked like a wall of iron, unmovable, unshakable. Victor tried to shove forward, shouting that Mariel was his daughter, that she was causing trouble, that he had every right to take her home. But cruelty stains the voice, and these men had heard voices like his before. Rhodes stepped closer, expression carved from stone, his tone low but deadly calm. He asked Victor the kind of questions only an innocent man could answer without stumbling. Victor couldn't. his excuses twisted into contradictions, his anger bubbling as he realized the men in front of him did not fear him, even a little. The louder he yelled, the more the truth spilled through the cracks he couldn't hide. Onlookers shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered, others glared. Then Mariel's quiet plea broke through the noise. Please, don't let him take me. Those words changed everything. Rhodes felt something shift inside him. Not rage, but purpose. A clarity so sharp it could cut through steel. He gave a subtle nod to Gunnar Locke, one of his brothers. Gunnar already had his phone out, calling the authorities. When Victor lunged toward them in one last desperate attempt, two more bikers simply stepped forward. They didn't touch him. They didn't need to. Their presence alone drove him backward. Victor's fury collapsed beneath the weight of a dozen watching eyes. Minutes crawled by until the rising wail of sirens finally cut through the tension. Police officers stepped in, separating everyone involved. Witnesses spoke. The biker spoke, and Marielle, shaking but courageous, told her story with a strength no one expected from such a small voice. Victor's lies fell apart instantly. The officers cuffed him and guided him into the back of the cruiser, his shouts muffled behind the locked doors. Marielle watched with trembling breath, clinging to Rhodes' vest for comfort, her small fingers wrapping around the leather like it was a lifeline. Moments later, her mother appeared, hair disheveled, eyes swollen from tears. She rushed to Marielle, dropping to her knees as she pulled her daughter into her arms. Their embrace held months of silent pain, and the breaking of a chain neither of them should have endured. Rhodes stepped back to give them space, but he didn't take his eyes off them until he knew, without a doubt, that they were safe. As officers finished filing their report, Rhodes leaned down and gently placed a hand on Marielle's shoulder. He told her she was brave, braver than many grown men he'd known, and for the first time that day, something in her tiny expression softened. She believed him. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories. Your support helps us keep spreading hope. Before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you witnessed this in real life? And so, with Marielle safe, Victor gone, and the Iron Valor bikers rolling back onto the open highway, the town of Alder Ridge witnessed a truth worth remembering. Heroes don't always wear badges or capes. Sometimes they wear leather vests, carry heavy pasts, and stop for a simple roadside break, just in time to save a life.